This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. So excited to speak with Jason Ritter about Matlock. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I was going back through your filmography and realizing that I think we spoke before, but I don't have access to that email account. I think it was an in-person interview somewhere in Tribeca for Peter and Vandy, which
Oh
was like
my gosh.
16 years ago. I think I was still in college writing for NYU's newspaper. And so I have no record of that interview. I think it was very nice. It was with Jess also, but
Oh
I
my
it must have been great.
gosh. That is so funny. I love that movie. I'm proud of that one. And Jess is so wonderful in it and as always and that's so cool. I think it premiered at Tribeca. So that was like our first foray out into the world.
Well, there's plenty of stuff I want to talk to you about, including another independent film that may be underseen. But before we get there, I'm just very happy that you seem to have done a lot of really great and memorable stuff on broadcast television. And I feel like now everybody's always on streaming, but you're
Yep.
on like the number one hit drama on broadcast, and you have so many shows that got you there. What is it like to still be in this genre and place that isn't necessarily so strong for everybody, but has really found an audience here?
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I think, you know, the first network show that I worked on was also CBS, and it was 22 years ago. And I think the wild thing for me is that I'm having the experience that I have hoped for for all of those different shows where you hope that people watch and you hope that people like and you hope it doesn't get canceled and all of these things. And that has been the most incredible part, is just we all felt like this was special and we all love each other so much, and it's such an incredible group of people, from Jenny Snyder Ehrman to all of our amazing directors, and Kathy and Sky and David and Leah. Everybody is just so wonderful. And I guess I didn't realize how protective I was of my hopeful feelings. But there's always that moment where you think, well, we feel like this is really special this time, but what's the world gonna think? It feels almost like the first day of kindergarten for your kid, where you're like, well, we think she's cool, but there are mean kids out in the world. What's gonna happen? Um, and so it's felt incredible to have the way that we feel about it match the response. And I also think it's just so warranted. I mean, the work that Kathy and Sky alone are doing, is just so incredible to watch and so inspiring, and the writing is so fun. And I mean, we were all super invested in the mystery. We were trying to solve it, and we are like, I hope they get as involved as we are, because we're having a great time trying to figure it all out.
I think that shows. I also know Sky said that she's, trying to figure out the best way to get answers on season two as much as possible. That they're not telling her anything. And she's like, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna know before anyone else does.
She will. She has her ways. She's been our lightning rod. She'll be like, "All right, guys, I got the tea," and we all lean forward. Listen,
What was your relationship like with the original show?
I didn't know the original show, to be honest. I know shows from that era, and for whatever reason, it was Columbo that made its way. I've seen every single Columbo episode, and I've only started to watch Matlock since I got the part, and I understand why everybody loves it, and I see how our show has that same kind of beating heart of Matlock, of it's similar to Columbo as well. Underestimate at your peril. And there's something that I think is so satisfying about that. I think everyone's felt underestimated, and everyone's dream is to be able to come out the other side and go, "Oh, I've outsmarted everyone here." Most of us don't get that second part to that story. We just go, "Oh, that feels bad," but they're probably right. Uh, but it's very, very satisfying, to see someone so brilliant uh, be discounted and dismissed, knowing that they'll come back in the end.
Before we get to the events of the finale, which we can discuss in detail, we'll issue a spoiler warning.
Okay.
What's your take on Julian? Do you think he's a good guy?
I think he's a complicated guy, and I think, we have a lot in common, Julian and I think that that he could maybe do with some of the years of therapy that I I have gone through. But it helps me understand him so much. And so I always have felt like uh, when I get a character, especially a complicated character who does bad things, there's a part of me that feels like, if not for the audience, for myself, I become a little lawyer for them. And I'm like, well, let me show you the facts that support my client's side of the story. So, so, and I also think I think it's kind of impossible to play just a bad, like to play a character that you think is just bad. I think you have to find something that you connect to, or find the way that they think about the world or something like that. Um, so I think he's a complicated guy. I think that certainly issues surrounding his father and he has some issues with. And I also think, as much as he would hate to admit it, uh, he's not as well equipped to handle things when they don't go his way. And I've seen this in a lot of people who have grown up with a lot of privilege and things like that. Everything is great, and they can be as nice and as gregarious as they want when everything's fun for them. And then when something happens that is not part of the plan, they can spin out for a second because they're not used to that. So I think sometimes when Julian things don't go his way, he can revert to that, 7-year-old kid who's like, but I get all the toys that I would like. So what's the problem?
When did you find out about the big reveal regarding the finale, and how did you feel about it?
I found out about, I would say, maybe 2/3 of the way through the season. I knew it was a possibility, and but I wasn't 100% sure. And so when I found out, it was kind of like, I don't know what's the phrase, the penny dropping something, or the other shoe, something dropping. But it felt like, okay, yes, this makes sense. I also understand how could have compartmentalized this act as something that he did for someone else and not something that he would have done of his own accord. I think, that's another thing about his character, is that, and I've also seen this in lots of people who, if they can, before taking accountability, if they can blame someone else, they will. And even just privately, secretly, I'm a good person, and it wouldn't have happened if they didn't, whatever. Um, so it made a lot of sense, unfortunately, that he would do something like this. And I also thought it was really well written that they had laid enough of these clues about Julian's psychology and his character, where, as an audience member, I've seen anywhere from, oh, he didn't mean it, let him go, he's a good person at heart, to lock him up, which is mostly coming from Melanie. But it's yeah, it's so I love that. I love that you can have a character that is so complicated that people can land on different sides of the coin as far as how much they would like Julian to be punished or not in it in the second season.
Well, until Sky shares the intel that she's somehow gotten, what would you like to see from Julian? And she's
Oh boy. I would love to see him going in this direction of breaking that sort of toxic bond from his father. I think that was such a big moment. I mean, the idea of potentially not even being a lawyer anymore and completely breaking away. That's one of the things he offers to Olympia in that scene where he's pleading for his life. He's like, I'll I'll leave it all behind. And so I think it's not something that he could even offer in the moment if he didn't think that that was some kind of possibility, and that's how far he wants to get away from all of this toxicity um, in that relationship. So it's unfortunate that he's just turned over this new leaf in his life, and the thing that he did when he was the most under the control of that um, psychological cycle, uh, it may come back to take away everything that he's worked for since then. Um, and and so it's a really scary and time for Julian, but a very exciting and beautiful time in terms of for me to be at this crossroads where I have no idea where my character is going to go, and all I know is that we all trusted Jenny and the writers so much last season, and they are so wonderful at what they do, and everything is so thought out and planned ahead, and they always seem to choose the best option for the way forward. So I'm very excited at this point to just right at this point I'm sort of where Sky is, where all I just want to know so bad, but I'm trying to enjoy this moment before I know what's going to happen to to just take some breaths, take my daughter to school, and get ready for the next season.
Well, you said this is a rare feeling for you because you had, and I used to watch, I still try to watch every pilot before I had a child. It was easier, but like, especially when it was just the broadcast networks and like there was only so much. And so I was thinking back as soon as I knew I'd be speaking to you up to the event, which I feel like is a certain kind of series that was very much like that time period. I feel like Manifest was sort of similar and
Yes,
did better, even though it still had a shaky like run. But I'm curious if you think that's the kind of show that would have been done very well on a streamer, maybe with like all episodes released at once.
absolutely. I think that it totally could have, and um, I think in the world where uh, in the world of mysteries and cliffhangers and things like that, I know that I think I started Lost season 4, and so this is a different time, but I breezed through seasons 1 through 3 on DVD, and it was so satisfying to go, "What's this hatch about? What's the hatch about? Let me see the next episode." Not wait a whole summer for the next season is very satisfying. So I think that that show definitely could have helped from some of that binge watching thing, and I don't know if people were sort of fatigued about big mystery shows at that point, and but I also think that if you are going to do a big crazy mystery show, I think networks should be forced to allow shows to have like a 2 hour series wrap up if they get canceled. Just for the people who have been invested in the mystery, it would be nice to especially for new shows to be like, listen, get on board now because I promise you you'll have an answer. Even if we cancel it right away, we'll give you the answers that you're tuning in for initially. So don't wait until season 4 to start, but you can start now and not be worried that you'll be left hanging. But I had a
I
lot
think
of fun
that
on that show.
absolutely, I think that's a great idea for sure. I know you weren't a series regular on Parenthood, but that also is a show that I feel like everybody loves Parenthood. It's hard not to like Parenthood. It's just so enjoyable and like so wholesome. And I feel like it's given birth to a lot of other similar shows that maybe aren't quite as, tender, but definitely have roots. How often does that show come up in your life?
It comes up now and again, because there's also a whole new group of people who are watching it for the first time, and I can't believe it's been as long ago as it was, but so, people who were children when it first came out and it wouldn't have been their thing are now discovering it and enjoying it, and I do think there's something so special about that show and that cast, and everyone was just so brilliant, and the way they were able to marry comedy and drama. I mean, I think the movie Parenthood is one of my like golden standards for something that is so genuinely funny and wild and broad and crazy, and then so deeply moving and emotional at the same time. And I felt like I remember when I first heard about Parenthood before I had any involvement on it, I was like, "Oh, that's tough," because that was always my favorite movie, and I feel like that show just captured that thing so well of life. It's funny, it's tragic, it's all things. And it's something that I actually really also appreciate about Jenny's writing is there's room for humor and there's room for very painful things, and you're not sacrificing one for the other. And we have all of these beautiful moments of Kathy's character dealing with her grief, and then we have Leah's tooth getting knocked out, and it's all part of the same show. But yes, Parenthood was very special, and it was at a time in my life that the family that was created on that show was so deeply meaningful to me, and Lauren and May specifically, and Miles feel like family members to me at this point.
Well, the project I want to call out, from your resume is certainly not nearly as wholesome, and your character is definitely not as wholesome. And that's the film Hits, which I feel like I saw at
Yes.
Sundance. Not much happened with it, and I feel like it's so relevant today, even though the technology used in there is a little bit less advanced than we have right now. That's a good way of putting it.
I absolutely agree. I think that movie was way ahead of its time. And it was such a thrill for me because it was like Mr. Show and The State were the two sketch comedy shows, and Saturday Night Live, but Mr. Show and The State were so rock and roll and crazy, and they shaped my little group of friends' sense of humor. So to get to work with David Cross was so exciting, and uh, and I thought that script was so it was so brilliant and so awful and funny and has such an incredible, unforgettable climax. Where Matt Walsh's character is revealed to be who he is. But I just think it's so it was he really I feel like to think that that was made like before the TikTok world is wild. Just like internet and people running to support someone or something that they don't know everything about. I just think, yeah, he did such a great job. And yeah, that character that I played was absolutely disgusting. And I did wear that horrible long goatee out that night because I had to work the next day. And I was like, I think I can just sleep in it and we can just keep it exactly the same. And so we went out, and I definitely, I definitely had some harsh reactions to it.
I would say Julian's a complicated character. This guy,
Not so
nothing,
much.
nothing redeemable there. Certainly.
No, not one redeemable quality there. I was not that character's little lawyer. I was just like, oh, this dirtbag.
I did want to ask you, do you feel like you know a lot about law? Do you feel like you could, adequately convince someone in the real world that you're a lawyer with lots of knowledge?
Gosh, if someone were to provide me the words, I think I've gotten the spirit of it. I think that, the more that I've seen in the real world and on other lawyer shows, there's less of a it feels like the more the lawyer can connect to the jury, the better. I think there was initially a feeling of like, well, if you're a lawyer, you're very serious and you talk like this and but even watching the old Matlock episodes, I'm like, oh, he's personable, he's connecting, he's telling a story. I mean, there's a lot of lawyering and acting. Um, there's a lot of crossover in those industries. Um, but I don't know the law very well, so I can say, objection and all of those kinds of things. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I could say according to clause blah blah blah. That's the tough stuff. That's what you go to school for. But if you want someone to tell the story, I can do that.
On the note of telling stories, what are you watching right now? What's really stuck with you on TV recently?
Oh boy. Um, we've been watching. Uh, we're so behind on so many shows. Right now, we're almost done with season 3 of White Lotus. So that's been really fun. We've seen Severance. Um, there's just so many shows, and it's hard because we're like, there are shows that we both want to see. So when it's just me folding laundry or something like that, I have to watch a I have to watch a silly reality show. And I can't watch all the fun, great stuff that's out there. But there's so much wonderful television out there. Obviously, I'm partial to Yellow Jackets as well. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. I mean, we went through all of every season of The Traitors that we possibly could. That was one of the reality shows that we watched together. Um, so uh yeah. Oh, and obviously we started Poker Face as well, which is really fun. Season 2 of Poker Face.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason. This was a lot of fun. Nice to relive some of your less remembered but still very worthwhile hits and
I
this
know, appreciate
fortunate
it.
success you've come upon now.
Yes, exactly. Oh, thank you so much.